Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. The number one media company in the United States is iHeartMedia, and also Charlton and Big C Sports have been rated the number one sports show in the universe, and that's because we're the only show in the universe that does it freestyle. That means no producer in our ear and no teleprompter. Today is coming from you from the Golden One Center in downtown Sacramento for the NBA Sacramento Kings, and they're getting ready to host an NBA game in town tonight. Should be a good game. Hopefully they can play better than they have been playing. They're playing the LA Clippers, and Doc Rivers has the Clippers playing well. And this section is also sponsored by all of you good old boys who listen to Charlton and Big C Sports. Had a good interview over the weekend with some MMA fighters coming up. And in the meantime, we want to say thank you to all of our Latin American listeners. So bienvenidos to you. We know you're hosting the Oakland Raiders and the Houston Texans. So I'm going to have a great time talking about that game with you, Big C. Also, you good old boys across the pond and in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, you great good old boys from Canada. I won't chew up your national anthem anymore, but I will say, oh, Canada, because I love the way it sounds, Big C. But last but not least, Big C, you good old boys down south, down there swamping. How's it going for you good old boys, Big C?
It's going wonderful, Charlton. We're really enjoying it down here. Matter of fact, you talk about Canada, and I hear they make some great beer.
Yeah.
My plea to you Canadians, put a little bit in the mail, FedEx some of it down here.
Yeah.
We can use it. Hot if we're in a drought down here in the southeast. We haven't had any moisture, so anything you want to send in a can or a bottle would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and then, it's the holidays coming up, and everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving and all the turkeys that they're going to be eating, Big C, and all the lamb and, sour cream with sweet potatoes and, collard greens and black-eyed peas and cornbread and all that good old stuff, boy, and think I might go eat right now. We can do the show later, Big C. But, what a great weekend of football. We have a lot of the traditional rivalries going on, and we have the global knockouts at Jackson Rancheria up in Jackson, California, just southeast of Sacramento. That's going on Saturday. We also have in Northern California and the Bay Area, we have the big game with Cal Berkeley and Stanford. That's going to be a good one. USC is playing UCLA down south and in Southern California. I know every week is a big game for you good old boys down in Alabama, Big C. But we have the NFL starting out too. But we're going to cover the NFL last. I just want to get your thoughts last night on some football with the Houston Cougars and the Louisville Cardinals. Man, what a blowout win. And speaking of blowouts, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And of course, Big C's is the one that has a lot of muddy tires, and they got to check the undercarriage because that has mud under too, Big C, from what I understand. How's the Escalade holding up for you, Big C?
That's not the only thing I mean. I think I ran over a couple things. Every now and then I hear something dragging and making noise in front of the car, but I didn't have time to stop. So, we'll figure that out soon or later. But the car is running wonderful, so it's a nice, smooth, luxurious ride.
Oh, man.
Positive traction. The car gets me everywhere. I get in and out of trouble in a hurry, Charles. As a matter of fact, we're going out this weekend to find part of Thanksgiving dinner because we heard some wild pictures in the area. So they're wild right now, but they may not be making noise in another 24 hours.
Yeah, that's funny, Big Z. And speaking of Escalades, I think even Donald Trump, he's going to order his. His is called the Beast. I think they get them. They have extra steel and extra security. And, of course, his comes with the Secret Service, Big C. So, good old boys, Donald Trump, congratulations on enjoying the Escalade. You think he'll take it swamping too, Big C? Or will he keep it clean?
Well, we might have to take a step down from the building and ride just ride in a Cadillac. Yeah. It'll be the most secure car in the world, so we don't have much to worry about. I don't think anybody be out there looking for it.
No, it's pretty hard to bother somebody when you're packing like that, Big C. And speaking of packing, what happened to Louisville last night? Houston, there's something about them playing football when they're down in the great state of Texas. They may be the best football team, college football team in Texas. I know A&M started out strong. They've fallen off a little bit. Texas, I believe, if they keep strong around one more year, he'll have a really good team down there for the Longhorns, Big C. But what happened with Louisville and Houston, Big C?
It was one of those trap games, Charlton, when you look at it. Lamar Jackson, with all the hype going into the game, And he had been throttled last week, Charlton, playing Wake Forest. He really didn't have any numbers. He had less than 300 yards passing. They didn't perform really into the second half. They had a lackluster first half, and they pulled it out in the second, but they got off to a lackluster start last night against Houston, down in Houston. And, Houston just took advantage of the game early. There was an opening kickoff fumble.
Yeah.
Houston went in and scored. Greg Wood Jr., a fine young quarterback in his own right.
He's amazing.
Outdo Jackson last night, Charlton. But, Jackson is still most likely the front runner for the Heisman because there's such a separation in the players this year. It's hard to find the number two. Number two is just throwing something up against the wall and trying to figure out who he is. When you think about last year's Heisman race, Charlton, when you had Derrick Henry, you had Leonard Fournette, you had McCaffrey out of Stanford, you had Deshaun Watson. You had four capable guys that could have won the Heisman Trophy, Charlton.
Yeah.
This year has been Lamar Jackson all year long, but the last two games have not been Heisman worthy. But, it's about the body of work, as the NCAA talks about in the playoffs when they do the rankings.
Yeah.
But, you think about when the initial ranking came out, Charlton, how teams have fallen by the wayside, and you wonder what's the criteria to rank a team now, Charlton, in the top four. You see two Big Ten teams in there. The selection committee so hell-bent on keeping the Big Ten in this versus, allowing a team in with one win, and you can have at least one Big Ten team with two losses most likely make the playoffs, probably because Ohio State and Michigan still have to play each other. And what it's going to come down to is that they're going to say strength of schedule. Yeah,
that's true. And they're trying to guarantee that they get one of the Big Ten teams in, and that's fine. But if you think about it, if you look at a championship team, even if it's from the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 now, or the Big 12, if you win your conference championship, even if you have a loss or two, you should never get jumped by a team that did not win their conference championship that has two losses, Big C. When we talk about some of the schools, and especially out here on the West Coast, I'm looking at a school like Boise State. They're number 23 in the country. They're 9-1. They did lose a game, but this is a team that could probably beat anybody on any given night, Big C, but we know it's not set up that way. I just want to get your thoughts on the team that I think can ultimately challenge Alabama, but they may not even win the Big Ten, and that's Ohio State. The Buckeyes ranked number 2 in the country. They're 9-1 under the season under Urban Meyer. They're playing at Michigan State, which is down this year, and the Michigan State played Alabama last year in the playoffs, and we have that game, Ohio State's favored by 22 points, and they're on the road at Michigan State. That's a lot of points to get in a game like this, but your thoughts on Ohio State, Big C?
Well, this is one of those games that Michigan State is playing for the season. If you recall a couple of weeks ago when they played Michigan, they came out early, got up on Michigan. Michigan was able to fight back and won the game, Charlton. But you always, when you have a top team coming in, you got to play your best as an underdog, especially if it's a rivalry game within the conference. That you can be the upsetter in the conference. You can shake up the pool.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what Michigan is playing for. Don Tony's a great coach of Michigan.
Yeah.
As you said, this is a down year. Every university will have a down year here and there. Just so happens, after having the great run last year at Michigan State, he lost a lot of players and just haven't been able to recover, mainly his quarterback coach. Who went off, matter of fact, even your boys later went down there in Oakland.
Yeah.
He was drafted by the Raiders. So when you look at always trying to retool, every program doesn't have the ability. Ohio State had the luxury of doing that because Barrett, lost last season because Cordell Jones was playing.
Yeah, that's true.
And so he was there. You had a veteran quarterback at Ohio State stepping in. So you didn't have to rebuild the program even though you had 17 new starters. But, this is a game playing Michigan State. There could be a challenge because now they're going to be up in the East Lansing.
Yeah.
They're expecting some inclement weather this time of the year up in northern Michigan. So, it could be a challenge out there.
Well, Big C, another game that might be a challenge because Wisconsin, even though they lost 2 close games this year, they got beat by Ohio State and they got beat by Michigan. They blew out Nebraska, kind of knocked Nebraska off of their crown a little bit, but Wisconsin's ranked number 6 in the country. They're 8-2 on the season. They're playing at Purdue, which is only 3-7. The great Bob Greasy went there, I believe, Big C. And also, that's also where your good old boy down south went to for New Orleans. Drew Brees went to Purdue as well, I believe, Big C. And when you have Wisconsin going on the road at Purdue, they're only favored by 28. If you think about it, Las Vegas is really like a competitive football, but they're only favored by 28 points at Purdue, Big C. This is a game. This is the same team that beat. They can put a lot of points on people. Your thoughts about Wisconsin? Can they avoid a letdown at Purdue, Big C, a team with a 3-7 record?
You look at Purdue, Charlton, throughout its history. This is a university that produced 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You think about Lynn Dawson, the great Lynn Dawson of the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl 4. Beating the Minnesota Vikings. You also had Bob Greasy, just spoke about, and Drew Brees, all been Super Bowl winners out of this Big Ten university. But, growing up there, Purdue has had a down season, but I look at the select committee, and you look at a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
And people say, well, they're the best 2-loss team in the country, but they got 2 losses. That means they got beat by a better team.
They got beat by a better team. That's how I understand it.
This ranking that, you're the best 2-loss team, so that's like having an ex-girlfriend that looks better now than what you did.
Yeah. And that means you have 2 losses, from what I understand. You good, boys. From what I understand down south, there's no such thing as an ex-girlfriend. I hear you guys are stringing them along, Big C, like Donald Trump. Is that what you guys do, Big C? And speaking of stringing people along, when you talk about who's going to get in, and they're kind of ruling out conference champions, Michigan can lose at Iowa in a great football game. That Iowa lost on the same field to North Dakota State, Big C, and Michigan also lost to that same Iowa team, but they don't fall far in the rankings. You have number 13 Oklahoma State. They're 8-2 on the season, and they are playing at TCU 5-4, and Oklahoma State's favored by 4.5. And it doesn't seem like anyone from the Big 10 or the Big 12 is going to get in there, even though Oklahoma got blown out earlier by Ohio State. If you look at Oklahoma State, just your thoughts on, do they even have a chance to get to the bowl game? I think not, even if they win their conference, Big C.
Well, Charlton, I think they're just going to omit the Big 8 out of the conference playoffs.
Yeah, Big 12 now.
Big 12. They're not going to allow any one of those teams in there, regardless of if you only had 1 loss. They're still not going to let a Big 12 team get into the playoffs. It's about power rankings, Charlton. It's about money. When you look at the stadiums that these teams play in, if you look at the top 4 teams in the country, look at the size of stadiums that they play in. Michigan, 114,000.
Oh, yeah.
Clemson is the smallest of the group with 88,000 down in Death Valley. Ohio State, 105,000.
Yeah.
Alabama, 103,000. This is purely about economics, Charlton. Granted, all of these are great teams, great universities, but when you look out west, and this is the reason why the Western teams have been omitted, Charlton, on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Stanford last year, we talked about them. They play in a stadium that's about 50,000.
Yeah, 50,000.
USC plays in the
Coliseum, 92,000.
92,000 seat stadium, but they don't put 92,000. Down in the SEC or the Big 12, Big 10, Big 13, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're going to have 100,000 people in those stadiums because in those other places, people have things to do. I think Washington seats about 65,000, 68,000 out there.
Yeah.
So, that has a lot to say when it comes down to picking teams. They look at teams that have generated revenue, Charlton, as much as anything else. And so they say, if they're generating revenue at home games or generate revenue on the road, they have people who will travel because their home stadiums are so large and enormous, is that these people will go to a smaller venue and pack it. You think a couple of years ago when Auburn was playing Florida State out in Pasadena for the national championship.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
The Auburn Stadium, home stadium, seats 85,000 as well as Florida State seats 80.
Yeah.
So they always would think that at least 30,000 to 40,000 of those fans will travel. That's what they look at when they start putting these teams together. It's not always about should that team be there, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's about the pure economics that university will generate because each team guarantees 30,000 tickets that they have to get rid of. And so they want to know that this team can sell 30,000. You're not going to give 30,000 tickets to Stanford if they're undefeated and say these people are going to travel. They're not. They can't fill up a 50,000 seat stadium, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this has a lot to do with it. You look at Washington. Are those people going to travel? And so these are the things that are considered. Louisville would have had a rare chance. Their stadium only seats about 52,000, even if they'd have gone undefeated. And Houston's no better, Charlton, seats about 48,000 out there.
Yeah.
So these are the things when they talk about quality wins, and you talk about the Iowa loss to North Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that improve Michigan's
It does not.
schedule?
I don't see how it does.
You got a Big Ten team losing to a Division II team at home, not on the road, at home.
Yeah.
Losing. So how do you call the Iowa loss a quality loss, Charlton, when they've lost to a Division II team.
Well, another team, when you look at University of Texas San Antonio, they're 5-5. They're at number 22, Texas A&M, which also we know is ranked in the top 4 at a time until they lost a couple of games down in the SEC. Now, they have 3 losses, but they're still ranked number 22 in the country. They're very talented, but it's just a matter of time before you get knocked off playing in the SEC Big C. So their chances of getting, back into the Final Four is not going to happen for them this year. But I want to get your thoughts on another big game coming up in the SEC. You have the Florida. They are ranked number 18 in the country. They're actually 7-2 on the year. They're playing at number 14 LSU, which is 6-3. A team 6-3 is still ranked 14th in the country. But when you look at LSU, they lost a tough game to Wisconsin. Also, they were set up by Alabama, but that was a tough loss, and they had another loss tossed in the SEC. But your thoughts on Florida and LSU playing that game down in Baton Rouge, Big C? Your thoughts on that game?
Once again, Charlton, let's look at stadium size. Baton Rouge, 102,000 people on game day down there in the swamp.
Yeah.
Well, not the swamp, but in Death Valley. Also, in 2 Death Valleys, ironically, in Clemson and LSU.
Yeah.
But, these are the things that you have to look at. How many people are they seating? I mean, they seat more people than Florida. Florida's roughly 78,000 to 80,000.
Yeah.
So a little less revenue on home game days than what you're going to get at LSU. But, here's a team, as you talked about with Florida. You said they were ranked, 14?
Yeah, Florida. Yeah, Florida right now.
14.
Yeah, they're ranked 18th in the country right
18.
now, 7-2. And they're playing LSU. LSU has 3 losses. They ranked higher, Big C, at 14.
Okay, and also you said Wisconsin is ranked number 6 in the country?
Yeah, number 6, and they're 8-2, Big C.
And they have 2 losses.
Yeah.
So how is their losses more quality than the losses with Florida? And Florida, think about this. Florida's had to play a couple different quarterbacks this year, Charlton, based on injury.
Yeah.
So this is a team that has really been put together. McElwain has done a good job down in Florida juggling quarterbacks. And also you look at LSU with Ogeron coming in and replacing Miles, early in the season, putting the team on a roll. They lost to Alabama. But, you look at these programs, and, you have to question the selection committee. And they can sit there and say, well, you have 4 or 5 ex-coaches on the selection committee.
Yeah.
The key word there, Charlton, is ex. Okay?
Like an ex-wife, right? She still has influence over what happens in your life, Big C. So just from what I understand, Big C.
but that means they no longer have the ability to tutelage a program, Charlton, to develop young athletes. So if they no longer have that ability to coach or develop young athletes, what gives them the ability to make the selections over the current players, Charlton? That's the thing that I don't understand. You're always bringing in these people, so when they have experience.
Yeah.
What I heard experience was getting old.
Yeah. From what I understand. Yeah.
So you don't function as well as you used to. I don't get out of bed as far as I used to, Charlton, as I did when I was 20.
Yeah.
It takes a little longer, I gotta get things lined up before I can stand up.
Yeah.
All right?
That's
so,
funny.
And that's what I look at with the selection committee in college football.
Yeah.
They got to try to figure out what they're doing. And they haven't gotten it right yet in one of these years.
Yeah.
There's always been somebody in the playoffs, Charlton, that should not be there. There's always somebody overlooked. But I tell you, the number one common denominator is about money. Look at the size of the home stadiums of the teams that they put in now. Oklahoma, you got to look at Oklahoma. They're a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
Is there anybody any hotter in the country than Oklahoma? I'd like to see Oklahoma and Wisconsin play it up.
Yeah.
To see which one is the best 2-loss team, because one of them will have 3 when that game is over, y'all.
Yeah, and Big C, speaking of winning and losing, this segment is also sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? Tonight's Mega Million is only about, I think it's about $95 million, Big C. So you probably won't you probably won't get out of bed for $95 million either, Big C, you and Donald Trump. But the Powerball on Saturday, that one is won by Charlton and Big C Sports, Big C. That's over $320 million, Big C. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of chump change. You can buy a lot of moonshine. How many Escalades could you buy with $320 million, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I'm only going to drive one at a time because it's so unique that it cannot be imitated or emulated.
Yeah.
And everybody's tried it.
Yeah.
And I love my boys at Cadillac. They do a great job for us and everything. But not only that, They took what I do with my Cadillac and put it on a commercial on television.
I've seen that.
Only difference, she was blind.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. That's what they call a colorblind society, Big C. They colorblind until it comes to giving people jobs. It's back to giving people jobs, Big C, in the world of college football. When we talked about Florida at LSU, and of course they have LSU favored by 13.5 in that game, Big C. Jumping out to the West Coast, when you look at a team that used to be kind of on top of the world, at least, west of the Mississippi, it was the Oregon Ducks. They're 3-7 on the season. They're playing at number 11 Utah, which is 8-2 on the season. So even if Utah gets into the Pac-12 championship, if they win, they're not going to get into the national championship Final Four, Big C. I don't see that happening. But in that game, you still have Utah's favored by only 14 points over a team that's given up like 4 touchdowns in the separation them from winning and losing, Big C. So I think Utah can win that by more than 14 points against Oregon. Your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about Oregon, Charlton, can you say Chip Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's where he's headed next year. He's going back to Oregon. Because he found out that life in the NFL is not what it all cracks up to be, because you can't threaten a grown man like you can in college. Okay?
Yeah.
But, Oregon is a program that is, taking a dive real quickly. This is a duck that cannot tread water, all right?
Yeah, but so what do they do with ducks that are not productive down in the South, Big C? What do they do with them?
Do you understand what a rotisserie is?
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, but it's only one.
And they're going up to Utah and those fighting youth up there, Charlton.
Yeah.
They'll have a field day plucking the ducks.
Speaking of plucking the ducks, I just want to say that's funny, Big C. But the team that ironically could win the Pac-12 championship is number 20 ranked Washington State. They're 8-2 on the season. One of their losses came to Boise State early in the year, Big C. They're at number 12 Colorado, which is also 8-2. And one of their losses came. They only lost twice. They lost to Michigan on the road, and they lost to USC on the road. Now Colorado's favored by 4.5, and that's a Pac-12 game at 3:30 p.m. on Fox out there in Colorado, Big C. Your thoughts on Colorado? I don't think they're anywhere near what McCartney had them with back in the day when he had a lot of California players. And Washington State, they can score points on anybody. They just can't stop anybody, Big C.
Well, if you think about the revitalization of this Colorado program, Charlton, they had been down for so long after McCarthy had left, and they'd had some scandals there also.
Yeah.
They weren't getting the players that they had back in the 80s, Charlton, when they had quarterbacks like Cordell Stewart. Fallon Nestor started it all back there. Kid out of Southern California.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer. Just a tremendous player who helped turn that program around. They had Aaron Durant, Belemini.
Yeah,
running back out there. Derek Hagan, quarterback. They won a national championship under McCarthy.
Yeah.
But, when you look at Washington State, Charlton, one of the unknown jewels of college football up in Pullman, Washington, Mike Leach. Many people remember Mike from Texas Tech.
Yeah.
The Red Raider offense down there. He had some record-setting quarterbacks when he was down there. Graham Harrell, was a wonderful quarterback down there. Matter of fact, even the coach that they have at Texas Tech now was one of his quarterbacks. But when you look at the quarterback in Washington State now, this kid is, quietly setting NCAA records, Charlton. He's passing with about a 77% completion.
Oh, he's amazing.
Over 40 touchdowns on the regular season. Everybody talks about Lamar Jackson because of the electricity that Lamar Jackson brings. But as far as just a pure passer, Washington State has the best passer. I mean, the kid up there in Washington gets all the notoriety.
Browning. Yeah, Jake Browning.
Jake Browning gets all the notoriety, but Washington State has the best quarterback in the state of Washington, and most likely on the West Coast, Charlton. If anybody wants to sit down and look at this kid's statistics, they're like, wow, how can he not be known about it?
Yeah.
What's the guy named Mel Kiper?
Yeah, Mel Kiper.
He doesn't even know about it.
Well, he knows about what people tell him, Big C. But also, when you think about 2 more games in college, and then we'll hit the NFL real quick, Big C, I just want to tell you that a big game for the Pac-12, and even if they have any hopes of getting into the national championship picture, you got to look at the University of Washington. Now, they have a game. They're facing Arizona State, which is 5-5, and they're going to Washington 9-1. That game is at 7:30 p.m. on Fox, and Washington is favored by 27 points over a great Arizona State team. They don't score a lot of points, but they're always close in their games. It seems, Big C. Washington has to bounce back big if they want to jump back into that Final Four, Big C. Jake Browning, he was up for talks of the Heisman Trophy. I think playing against USC, which has gotten really physical lately, now that they gotten all that stuff that you guys gave them to drink down at Alabama, Big C, I don't know what they put in the drink, but they got it out of their system. They've only had some IVs now, so they're playing better. But your take on Washington bouncing back against Arizona State, Big C?
Well, they really need to bounce back, Charlton, but where will they be emotionally? After that devastating loss to Southern California, it's a perfect season that they were riding on, went by the wayside. And, Peterson's an excellent coach, and he knows how to bounce back from a devastating loss. But, the players as a whole, that's what you look at. And, USC got off to a terrible start this season, Charlton, and once they made the change at quarterback, everything changed.
No. It wasn't a quarterback change, Big C. They found out they were drugged, Big C. Somebody put something in the drink. Even the horseman had a hard time standing up after they played Alabama, Big C, and he wasn't even in the game. So I don't know what you guys gave them, but they found they were missing the playbook that they had. I think Sarkisian took out of town with that, and they also had to put some IVs in these boys, Big C. So whatever you guys do, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Is that what you guys call it?
Well, I think they were also impressed and in awe of what they had to look at. The athleticism down in the South Side. They were also, when the last time they sit in front of 100,000 people and played? I think that kind of, shock and awe to the players out there at USC. When you're used to playing in a half-empty arena, when you come into a house, a place, a palace.
No, 92,000 is not half-empty. I got to represent the West Coast. That's Ice Cube's neighborhood. They get about 92,000 at their games. The big games do, and the smaller games get about 85,000, Big C. That's what I'm saying for USC. You're going to get Lynn Swan mad at you, man. You got to be careful. He listens in too, Big C, just so you know.
Okay, you just said Swan. That's sort of like a Utah turkey, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Talk about what happened to the duck.
Oh, that's right.
Any other bird, he played the ball also.
Well, speaking of the great Lynn Swan and the great USC, they have a game, the traditional game out here in the West Coast has always been the USC and UCLA game. USC is ranked number 19 in the country, and they're 7-3. Now UCLA has kind of fallen on hard times. They're 4-6. I know they've had a lot of injuries. Their quarterback has been injured, but they're still a very talented team. And USC is favored by 13. That game's at 7:30, actually 10:30 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. So a lot of you good old boys are asleep by the time they play. But when you think about that game, whether it's at the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum, you had so many great players, whether it's UCLA or that had the great Troy Aikman. They had so many great players. The great Ken Norton Jr. played there. They had so many great players there, Big C. And of course, USC with Reggie Bush and O.J. Simpson and Mike Garrett and Lynn Swan and all the good old boys. Your thoughts on that game, Big C, and that rivalry?
Well, you think about the UCLA program. Just 3 years ago under Jim Moore, when he came in, everybody had such high praise and hopes for this program's revitalization, Charlton.
Yeah.
Then they brought in Rosen, the young quarterback, who had such a tremendous freshman season, but injuries have plagued him since then, and also injuries across the board. This thing, last year they had Miles Jack, who was a tremendous two-way player for 2 years. But, he left through the draft. He left early after his junior year, and they were counting on him. So this is a team that was in transition, and when they lost Rosen, it was really devastating. And right now, USC is probably the best team playing in the country next to us down south here.
Yeah. Wait. Did you say us? You good old boys. Are you still going to school there, or did you graduate already, BC?
Well, Nick allows former players to come out and practice. Okay. All right. So, there's participation that still goes on within the program.
Well, you might open up an investigation for Alabama when you start saying us, and you better school 30 and 45 years, Big C, just to make sure. Go right ahead, Big C.
But when you look at this game, this was one of the best rivalries on the West Coast for decades, Charlton. UCLA, USC. It was a game normally that would decide the championship, Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8. Yeah. I go back to the Pac-8.
Yeah.
It was decide the Pac-8 championship, and you think about the great quarterbacks that they had back in those days. Hayden was a quarterback, Vince Evans out there. UCLA had Dankworth. Prior to the guys you talked about, Aikman and quarterbacks.
Yeah, Matt Leinart, those good old boys. Yeah.
Well, not only that, Newhouse, who went on to play and become the head coach at UCLA and Washington.
Yeah.
Was one of the great players in that program. But they've had so many heritage players, Charlton. But, this is a game that, should be an easy game for USC. Like I said, they've been one of the hottest programs in the country over the past month and a half. And I can't see anybody who wants to play them, especially after that victory last week against the University of Washington.
Yeah, they really did a good job on beating down the good old boys up at Washington. And also, this final segment is brought to you by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports at YesCharlton on Twitter. And also, we are endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. We work with all of the unions under the AFL-CIO, and we're also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we simply want to put people back to work, Big C. And as we'll get into the NFL briefly, Big C, we have a lot of good games matching up. The first one I want to get into is the game down in Mexico before Donald Trump builds that wall. That's on Monday night, and that's with the great Oakland Raiders at 7-2 versus Houston, and 99-yard passing per game. Brock Osweiler, Big C, they're 6-3. That game's Monday on ESPN at 8:30 Eastern Time in Mexico City on ESPN. Sean McDonough and John Gruden, as well as Lisa Salters, have the play-by-play. Your thought on the Raiders? Are they for real, Big C? And will Houston find a way to pass for more than 99 yards in that game, Big C?
Well, the Raiders offensively are real, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're stout in the NFL. That defense is still a big question mark. But, you think about this is the 25th game being played outside the United States by the NFL. It just so happens to be in the city where they played the first game outside the United States, Charlton, in Mexico City in Azteca Stadium. This stadium sits, Charlton, about 7,500 feet above sea level. Yeah. So, one of the big problems for players that would be early is conditioning, Charlton. Catching your breath at such altitude, it's not easy. So, but the Raiders offensively are a team that can move the ball. Yeah. The defense is a question mark. Houston has gotten points from their defense this year, as you spoke about Osweiler. When you talk about a game manager quarterback, that's all he is. He hasn't been playing quarterback. He's just a game manager because there's no other team, Charlton, that you would go out and hear that the quarterback is passing for 99 yards and getting high praise. And, but since he signed such a huge free agent contract, this is the thing that he gets a pass on. Yeah. Not that he's a great player, it's just he gets a pass because he's making so much money. And you have to question, not just his ability, but his motivation to get better, Charlton. Well, he still seems to be a little butthurt from being benched last year in Denver. Yeah. Is that, he has an attitude, lackluster, carefree. And, when you're paying a guy kind of money he needs to be lighting a spark on the offense, not sitting there sulking, thinking about what didn't go right last year, Charlie. Yeah, Big C, that's always true. And when you think about that, another good game coming up, the Green Bay Packers 4-5 at the Washington Redskins. They're 5-3-1. That game is Sunday, 8:30 Eastern Time on NBC with Mike Tirica and Chris Collinsworth, as well as Michelle Tafoya. Your thoughts on the Redskins with Kirk Cousins up against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Big C? Well, the Redskins are moving in the right direction right now, Charlton, and the Packers are not. But people want to say, well, it's in the coaching. It's not the coaching, Charlton. It's a team that's had multiple injuries. When you look at their defense, it's been decimated. They really have no pass rush. Their offense, no running game. They've gone through a lot of running backs. Matter of fact, they're going to play a running back that they picked up off a waiver from Seattle last week. Yeah. So that's where their running game has gone through. The inconsistency at receiver, they just haven't had it. Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers we saw 5 years ago. No. And one of the things that media hates to say is that time catches up with everybody. Oh, yeah. It honestly does, except Tom Brady. Nobody's caught up with him yet. But that's the thing you have to look at. Is Aaron Rodgers already reached the pinnacle of his career? Yeah. That's the thing. He's not going to get better, and that's the thing that athletes have to get to a point in their life to understand that after so many years, my body starts to betray me. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers has taken a lot of hits. People want to say it's his offensive line, and I always wonder why with so-called elite quarterbacks, they blame it on the offensive line. But if these guys are so cerebral and so talented, why worry about what the offensive line is doing? Learn to take a 3-step drop and get rid of the ball. You shouldn't have to drop back 7 yards, hold it, and hold it so much. Drop to clear. Yeah. Get rid of the ball. You're so intelligent, and you know that your offensive line is so-called by the national media inept. Don't sit there and take a beating. Get rid of the football.
Well, speaking of taking a beating and getting rid of the football, you have the Philadelphia Eagles 5-4 with Carson Wentz at the Seattle Seahawks 6-1 under the great Pete Carroll. That game is Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Big C, and the broadcasters in that game is going to be the great Jim Nantz, followed by Phil Simms and Tracy Wolfson. And Wentz is going to be under fire at Quest Field, Big C.
Well, but also you got to look at it from Seattle's perspective, Charlton. Will they have a letdown after that great game Sunday night in New England after coming from behind and beating the Patriots?
Yeah.
A game that not many people gave them a chance to win because Tom Brady had been hot and people thought that New England would not lose a game the rest of the season. Carson Wentz has shocked people on weeks that people thought he would not win. The Eagles won last week and shocked a lot of naysayers out there. Wentz was able to win another game.
Yeah.
As a rookie quarterback, he has developed, quite nicely. He's not Dak Prescott, but he's done a fine job in his rookie year being the second overall pick out of North Dakota, that team that beat Iowa.
Yeah, beat Iowa, yeah.
So that's where he was from. So, I like Seattle in this game because it's hard to go up to Quest Field and beat somebody.
Yeah.
But I also got to wonder if they'll have a little hangover from the game in New England last week.
No hangover. They don't drink the same moonshine you good old boys drink down south. They will not. They may have a hangover, a food hangover from all the fish they eat, but no hangover from the shine that you guys get down with BC. Also, another game out here on the West Coast, the New England Patriots with Tom Brady 7-2, flying across the country to play San Francisco. That's the first time that Brady has actually played against the 49ers in San Francisco, or now Santa Clara, Big C. And the 49ers are 1-8. They've been struggling all season long, especially last year too. But Colin Kaepernick against Arizona, he accounted for over 90% of the 49ers offensive production. He had 5.5 yards per carry and rushing the football, Big C. He also was 17 of 34, actually 17 of 30 for 210 yards. Even had a couple of drops. But when one player gets you 90% of your offensive productivity and the knucklehead Bay Area media can't do the math, they're always talking about we need to find a quarterback and we need to try to rebuild this team. You already have a Super Bowl champion. In fact, when Tom Brady plays Colin Kaepernick is undefeated against the great Tom Brady, Big C. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, this is a game that you're going to have to look at the 49ers defense, Charlton. Every running back that has showed up has gained over 100 yards rushing against this year.
Yeah.
And we know what LeGarrette Blount can do on the ground, so expect him to get his 100 yards and help that record the dismal record that the 49ers defense has given up this year is about 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
But also, Charlton, Tom Brady is only 3 games away from being the NFL's all-time leading winner at quarterback. He's sitting at 198 victories. Brett Favre has 199.
Yeah.
And the great Peyton Manning has 200. So Tom Brady's only 3 victories away from that. And I expect for him to get there within the next 3 games, Charlton, because of New England's schedule. The 49ers, Colin Kaepernick has played well since coming back into the starting lineup, but he has no supporting cast, especially on defense.
Yeah.
When you have a dismal defense that's giving up 45 points a game, Charlton, you're not going to win in the NFL. New England will be without Gronkowski, but they have Martellus Bennett at tight end, who is just as equal.
Yeah.
And so I see this being an easy game for the New England to win, probably 17, 18-point victory, Charlton.
Well, they have that game Sunday, 1 at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports, and the great Greg Gumbel, Trent Green, and Jamie Erdahl have the play-by-play. Another game coming up, the Miami Dolphins at 5-4. They're at the Los Angeles Rams at 4-5 on the West Coast. Sunday, 4:05 p.m. kickoff Eastern Time on Fox with the great Chris Myers, Ronde Barber, and Jennifer Hill doing that one. They're actually going to put out, golf is going to get the chance to start for the first time, and I think it's going to be a mistake, Big C. Why would they start them after they've shown they cannot protect the quarterback they already have, Big C? Go right ahead.
Well, I look at it from this scenario, Charlton. What's the over and under on Ndamukong Suh getting a rough in the pass in that game?
He'll probably get one.
He's going to get the penalty just to see if Jeff Goff will do anything afterwards.
Yeah.
But they're going to hit this young kid. They'll take a couple of penalties because what is a penalty? It's only like a completed pass for 15 yards down the field, but it's emotional damage that you're going to put on the kid because people are saying he's not ready. His head coach said he's not ready.
Yeah.
He may have even said he's not ready himself. Todd Gurley has disappeared. He's been a ghost in the Rams offense this year. This team is last in the NFL in rushing the football, Charlton. So if you're last in the NFL in rushing the football, you wanted to blame Case Keenum.
Yeah.
He's the quarterback. He's not the running back. You got to look at the offensive line. Now, no one's blaming the Rams' offensive line, but they blame Green Bay's offensive line. They blame Indianapolis' offensive line. But nobody's blaming the Rams offensive line when you had the NFL Rookie of the Year last year as a running back.
Yeah.
And he's only averaging 2.3 yards a carry this season, Charlton. So let's be realistic about the Rams. It's not just Goff. It's not Case Keenum. It's the offensive line and the lack of productivity of Todd Gurley.
Yeah, I agree, Big C. It all comes together. And speaking of coming together, you have another game. It's the Arizona Cardinals 4-1 at the Minnesota Vikings that have fallen to a 5-4 record. That's Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. And the great broadcaster Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, and Jamie Erdahl are doing the play-by-play. Your thoughts on Arizona going into Minnesota, Big C?
Well, I see Arizona coming out with a victory. Minnesota has found a slide somewhere. I guess they're coming off the roof of the Mall of America. This new building that they have has them in a daze.
Yeah.
Because their last 4 games that they've played, I mean, they look like the deer in the headlights. And trust me, I've had a few in my headlights.
And Big C, what do they do with the deer when they get hit by headlights, Big C?
They want to stand there, and I got this little extended bumper on the front of my car, my car from being dead.
Yeah.
So if the deer is going to stand there and stand like me.
Yeah, that's funny. Maybe they should stop giving the beer access to the moonside kettles that you guys use down south of Big C. And also another game with one of the much maligned quarterbacks in the NFL, the Chicago Bears. They are 2-7. It's amazing they're only 2-7 with such a great history of football, Big C. They're at the New York Giants that are 6-3, and they're not far out of being first place in the NFC East because they have beaten Dallas that first game, Big C. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time on the Fox. The great Kevin Burkhardt, John Lynch, and Pam Oliver are doing the play-by-play, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but, when we look at Jay Cutler, Charlton, he's been so lackluster since he's been in Chicago as a quarterback. This is a guy who seems like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And when you have the captain of your team and also the quarterback who seems like he doesn't care, how do you motivate the rest of the guys around you? This is a team that has fallen on hard times. I think about, they had Lovie Smith there several years ago, Charlton. He took the team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you look at the decline of the Chicago Bears since the firing of Lovie Smith out of that organization. They brought in everybody. They brought in John Fox. He's only had 2 victories this year. Didn't have any last year.
Yeah.
But Lovie Smith did so much with this organization after getting the head coaching job that he lost the Super Bowl to the Indianapolis coach and the great Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy. But also, after his firing, this program has gone down.
Yeah.
They said an African-American coach couldn't have a losing season. So he had a losing season. But every white coach that has come in there, Mark Trestman, now John Fox, has had losing seasons.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Why did you get rid of Lovie Smith to hire 2 more coaches that have lost more games than Lovie Smith ever lost in Chicago, Charles?
Well, sometimes that's always the smoking gun question, Big C. When we look at another game, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 4-3. They're at the Kansas City Chiefs, which is 7-2. The great Andy Reid, Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Fox. And the great Kenny Albert, Dale Johnson, and Laura Oakman doing the play-by-play. Your thoughts at Tampa Bay going into Kansas City, Big C?
We'll put it this way. He's not playing the Chicago Bears this week. So Jameis Winston won't be able to run around in the pocket for 11 seconds.
Yeah.
That was an abysmal performance by the Bears defense last week. And we've always known John Fox is a defensive guru, but if that's what a guru is now, he needs to be looking for another job.
Yeah.
Kansas City has hit their stride. Andy Reid knows how to coach. I mean, this is a team last year when it went on a 10, 11 game run.
Yeah.
And they seem poised to do that again, Charlton. They're in second place in the AFC West. Tied with Denver right behind Oakland.
Yeah.
This is going to be a dogfight out there, but Kansas City has the better team, better personnel. And right now, you got Alex Smith back in his starting role. Kansas City should roll easily in this game, Charlton.
Well, Big C, that's another good game coming up. The Buffalo Bills 4-5 on the season. They're at Cincinnati, which is 3-4-1, and that game is Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. And the play-by-play is Thorne Brenneman, Charles Davis, and Chris Spielman, as well as Holly Saunders. And Cincinnati's very disappointed this season. Buffalo was looking very strong for a while, but they dropped a couple of close games. Also, Big C, your thoughts on that game at Cincinnati?
Yeah, but Cincinnati, Charlton, offensively just could not get it done this year. Last week they lost a heartbreaker 21-20. They have a tremendous defense, but that offense, for some reason this year, Andy Dalton has just not been able to get on track. They have one of the best wide receivers in the game. and A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, a tremendous
tight end. They're really good. Yeah.
But that offense just cannot find its stride. And defense, they're there, but offensively, they're not. And so I see Cincinnati once again going down. And, all the talk about Marvin Lewis losing his job, and Marvin Lewis's record has been one of the top 10 coaches in the NFL over the past decade.
Yeah.
But that's not good enough because he's African-American.
Well, he may want to get out of there just because, Big C, but if he's going to lose his job, fire everybody who hasn't been to the playoffs 8 straight years in a row. Another game coming up, the Tennessee Titans under the great Marcus Mariota, 5-5 on the season. They're at Indianapolis, and the great Andrew Luck, he's only 4-5, but he still has a $144 million contract. Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports by Spiro Davis and Solomon Wilcox doing the play-by-play. Big C, your thoughts on that game?
Well, this is a battle of two former Pac-12 quarterbacks, Charlton, Andrew Luck and Marcus Mariota. Andrew was always touted to be the best quarterback ever to come into the NFL draft. Andrew Luck, Marcus Mariota is just only a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
But you look at the maturation of Mariota this season, this is a quarterback that has to learn how to stay in the pocket more. He was that very mobile quarterback when he was in college at Oregon. But if you look at his success that he's had this season, Charlton, in the games that Tennessee has won, and especially last week, if he stays in the pocket, he's completing over 70% of his passes. And we saw him last week with the 4 touchdown passes. But when he wants to be mobile and go back to his college ways, running that spread offense at Oregon, that's when he becomes vulnerable in the NFL because the talent and the speed in the NFL is a lot greater.
Oh, yeah.
Indianapolis has just struggled this year. But, as they say, it's not Andrew Luck, it's the players around him. He has no talent, is what they say. And I'm trying to figure out when they say he has no talent, are they referring to Luck or his team?
I think they're referring to some of everybody, Big C. And also, speaking of talent, this final segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network at Yes Charlton on Twitter. That's YES Charlton on Twitter. Big C, the last 3 games we'll talk about before we close the show. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars 2-7 at the Detroit Lions. And the Lions are actually looking pretty good. They're 5-4. That game is Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports. And Andrew Simeon, as well as it looks like Steve Tasker is going to be doing the play-by-play on that one. And Steve Berline, your thoughts on Jacksonville 2-7 with Blake Bortles going into the Detroit Lions at 5-4, Big C?
Well, this is another one of those coaches that's on the hot seat, Charlton, Gus Bradley. Blake Bortles, number 1 overall draft pick about 4 years ago in the NFL, has not really gotten his team on track. Everybody's talking about the young arms and stuff and, the talent, the upside. Upside eventually has to be present.
Yeah.
You can't keep talking about what a player has that he's going to develop and be one of the great stars of the league.
Yeah.
When you draft a guy number 1 overall, he has to be the star of the league, Charlton.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the 4 to 5 years to become good. He's supposed to be good instantly, and that's what they haven't gotten from Blake Bortles. So they brought in Gus Bradley, expecting him to be able to turn the program around, and Gus Bradley he's had a number 1. He's been drafting in the top 5 ever since he's been quarterback at head coach at Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But I look at Jim Caldwell, who was let go out of Indianapolis after being on that coaching staff that went to the Super Bowl and got the team back in the playoffs the following year. But when Peyton Manning went down, the team went down, and they blamed it on the coach. They didn't want him around the coach, Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
They gave the job to somebody else, and now he's not having any success.
Yeah, that's true. But, no, that's not true. He's having success catching that paycheck, Big C. Let's keep it real, Big C. All those checks have cleared, Big C.
Well, Fagano, he just is not getting the job done. Charlton, and I often question that, when they say the talent around the player is not what it should be.
Yeah.
Who's the guy making the final cuts at the end of the season? Okay, Charlton, when they make the final cuts and they say these are the best players available, on like 53, 58-man roster, whatever it is in the NFL now.
Yeah.
These are the best players available. These are the same head coaches that are losing the game on Sunday, saying, I picked the best players available, giving us the best chance of winning.
Yeah.
So, no one ever questions that. They always say, well, they just don't have the talent or the depth. No one says the head coach made a bad decision in the players that he kept, Charlton.
Yeah.
So I wonder how does these equations come about?
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And this final segment is also sponsored by BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org and also CYNN Entertainment. When it comes to entertainment, Cynthia Evans, she's the best in Northern California. Big C, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 4-5 on the season with a great Big Ben Roethlisberger. They're at Cleveland 0-10. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The great Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon have that game. I don't think there's any way that Pittsburgh loses a game at Cleveland to give them their first win of the season. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Sergeant, this is the division rivalry. The history of these two teams go back a long, long ways. Since both of these teams originally started out in the NFL, in the NFC.
Yeah.
And when they had the merger, they took the Browns and the Steelers and put them on the AFC side of the ledger. The Steelers went on to win 4 Super Bowls, actually 6 Super Bowls since being in the AFC. The Browns have never even made the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, but they may not even make a victory this year, but this could be one of those trap games. Luke McCown has played well when he had the chance. He just needs some support. They've had no running game in Cleveland. But Pittsburgh, Charlton, there's been some dismay and disgruntledness in their camp.
Yeah.
Ben Roethlisberger has blamed everybody else.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that's pulling the trigger, Charlton. So he has to play better. He just can't always point a finger at everybody. Big Ben has to shoulder some of the load himself as far as the Steelers not playing well offensively.
Well, I was often told when you point a hand or a finger at somebody, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. In the final game, Big C, it could be the team that at least gets to the NFC Championship game now that Jerry Jones has, stopped sipping so much moonshine and decided that 8-1 is not too bad a record right now, Big C. And they named Dak Prescott this started, but it took them 9 games to do it, Big C, unfortunately. And when you look at that game, the play-by-play is for the Dallas Cowboys. They're 8-1 playing the Baltimore Ravens at 5-4. The play-by-play is Dan Fouts, Ian Eagle, and Evan Washburn. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. I really like the way the Dallas Cowboys are playing, Big C.
Dallas Cowboys are playing well. They're a very cohesive offensive unit. There's great balance between run and pass. Offensive line, I guess they have some talent there on the offensive line because they've done a tremendous job protecting Dak Prescott. But he has the mobility when it breaks down up front to be able to avoid the pass rush, Charlton. Ezekiel Elliott, just a tremendous rookie running back. But on the flip side, when you look at Baltimore, you look at this proud organization that has fallen too far so fast. And Harbaugh, John Harbaugh's been under a little heat this year in Baltimore. Yeah. But also, you got to look at Joe Flacco, the quarterback, Charlton. He has a little bit of that Jay Cutler syndrome. When you look at him, he doesn't possess a sense of urgency at quarterback playing. He comes up to the line of scrimmage, he's lackadaisical. He just doesn't have that spark in his eyes. I guess after you win a Super Bowl, you get a $126 million contract. It's like, hey, I've been there, done that. I'm getting paid now.
Go ahead,
that's what they got to find. They got to get Joe Flacco to play better. They don't have the most talent around in their team. I mean, they cut Forsett, their young running back, earlier in the season. Yeah. He's off in Detroit now. Steve Smith, when you're relying on a 35-year-old receiver to be the best receiver on your team, Ivy Newsom needs to do a better job at that position in the draft. He's drafted tremendous defensive players since he's been there. He's gotten 2 Super Bowls out of his players. But, he needs to get some receivers, and you can't rely on Steve Smith at 35 years of age, and he's had a lot of injuries. He came back off an Achilles injury last year. Yeah. He's had a shoulder injury this year, Charlton. Baltimore, Joe Flacco needs a good can of Red Bull and a jar of honey. Step it up a little bit.
That's funny. But, it's so funny because we love the NFL. We love college football, and there's so many great games happening this week, whether it's the big game, Cal and Stanford, or the USC and UCLA, the battle for Los Angeles. We know the good old boy from the Oakland Raider Coliseum, the Black Hole. They're taking the Black Hole down to down to Mexico, Big C, and they're going to play in a stadium. I think it holds 120,000. It's a great environment for football, and they're playing the Houston Texans. They're good for 99 yards passing, Big C. Also here at the Golden One Center in downtown Sacramento, California, people are getting ready for the Clippers coming to town to play the Sacramento Kings, and the Clippers are in first place in the Pacific Division, and it should be a great matchup. I hope that the Kings can kind of hold up down the stretch. The Clippers are 10-2 on the season, and the Sacramento Kings always struggling, but they're trying to get better, even though they only have 4 wins on the season. But I just want to say there's a great Mike's Martial Arts competition up at Saturday, Jackson Rancheria, brought to you by iHeartRadio, and there's so many things happening all over the country in the world of sports, Big C. We always like to say, let's say there's no tolerance for domestic violence. No woman should ever be made to feel unsafe. If you're around anyone, you see anyone in trouble, just call 911. Don't make a woman have to deal with it on her own. And as we say to you every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports on iHeartRadio, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.